This is Grimes County Commissioners Court. It's Wednesday, July the 24th. We are still at recess from our budget workshop. As a courtesy to our out-of-town, out-of-county visitor, we're going to open our special meeting agenda. Today is a special meeting of Commissioners Court of Grimes County, Texas. Today is Wednesday, the 24th of July, 2019. And we are in a workshop meeting at the Grimes County Annex at 114 West Buffington. The first item on the agenda is to consider and take action to hire U.S. Capital Advisors to provide financial advisory services for Grimes County. I guess the stipulation on that is as long as the contract is under $50,000, auditors, we do not have to go out for bid?
No, because this is a special professional service, so we do not have to go out for bid.
Do you have to go out for bid if it's over $50,000?
No.
Okay. I was not aware of that. So it's a special professional services? Okay, and the code allows us to be selective in that?
Yes.
All right. So with that, Commissioner Mallett, you kind of started this.
This is basically for the additional funding for the Justice Center.
Okay.
We're close to completion of our construction documents and can go out for bid. In order to award the contract to a general contractor, we have to have all the financial money available for that, basically in the bank or about to be in the bank to award that contract. So with the time frame it takes to advertise and get approval from the government for, I believe, if we go the route of a tax note, it's around a 90-day turnaround.
I have a whole timetable with all the steps.
Okay.
Stepped out for
Okay.
you.
But anyway, it's to have the money in place. We don't necessarily have to know the exact amount now, but closer to the time of actually selling the bonds, we can have those numbers once we get the, closer to the time to award the bid, so we can basically award the contract, the bid to the Justice Center at the same time we sell the bonds and have the exact number that we need.
I have two questions based on the comments that you just made. One, is it indeed a requirement that we have all of the funds? Let's just talk. Let's say we have a $10 million project and we only have $6 million. Are we required to have $10 million worth of funding in hand and or secured in order to initiate a $10 million contract?
That's my understanding.
Is that because we're government?
The statute stipulate, and I'm not a bond lawyer, that's something else you guys have to do is hire a bond lawyer. County's gonna go to the bank and borrow money. Anything that you borrow over a 1 year period of time, the Constitution states what instrument that these instruments are allowed for you to borrow money. And one of these instruments are stipulate that you can't award a construction contract for $10 million if you only have 6.
Okay.
So you would borrow the funds for the balance, and you need to have that timing set to where you have the money committed. You don't have the money in the bank, because from when you sell the notes, it's about 30 days until you get the money in the bank. And so during that, set up the timing, to map your timing. You know exactly how much the construction contracts are gonna be, and you award the balance at that same meeting, balance of how much you need to borrow.
Okay, so you brought up a question in just a minute, but the second question for you is, you were saying selling the bonds?
That's the term. Tax notes, COs, bonds. The term is selling, you would sell the bonds on a certain date.
Okay, but
But it's not
selling bonds, but not a bond election type selling bonds. Okay, so,
The bond is a synonymous term for tax note, CO, or bond.
so the taxpayer, it's a scary note. It's not synonymous,
No.
it's scary. Okay,
You sell the tax notes.
okay, better said. All right. So what do we need to know, sir?
Well, I mean, I guess we can move to, I guess we can have a motion to hire him, and then he can run down the information about the costs based on different scenarios. And
Can we have a rundown on the cost of different scenarios before we hire him? Or is that,
Costs are not subject to me. There's a whole bunch of costs that are involved with borrowing money that aren't subject,
Yeah.
that are not me. I have those in the cost estimates. Bond lawyer, attorney general, advertising fees, CUSIP fee. I mean, there's a lot of things that are underwriting fees that we have costs in here estimated for, not subject to my contract.
Do you have any paperwork with you outlining any of that?
We submitted our
You keep-
contracts back in February.
Mhm.
I did not resubmit the contracts, it's the same contract we had before. The lawyer had some questions on them, but he didn't want to really talk about, it was nomenclature mainly, but he wanted the court to act before he talked to our legal counsel.
Miss Mary, do you have that contract?
I have it somewhere. Corey, do you have it in front of you?
Excuse me, I have the initial draft that was given to John that he's marked his notes on. Yes.
Okay. So I guess we could potentially, well, I guess I can move that we
you make a
hire,
motion?
I'll move that we hire U.S. Capital Advisors to provide financial advisory service for Grimes County, pending approval, or pending negotiations of a contract with the county.
I'd like to see a contract before we do anything. I'm sorry, I
Like-
didn't bring it with me.
Okay. How big is
I can
the,
get
how
a
big is the
clean copy out
contract?
of my email.
Would you please? I can't get in my email in here.
I can go to my email.
I have a copy of it here too, somewhere.
It's 4 pages and it has a 2-page exhibit.
I'll go get it.
All right, would you make copies?
Yes.
Thanks.
You have yours?
I have it in my office.
In the meantime, would you tell us some of the
Yeah.
associated costs and things with that? Re-educate us again, Ben?
I can,
Will-
this is his marked up contract.
Okay, well, she's gonna get us copies of that.
Okay.
So we need to have full funding taken care of, or agreed to, whatever the right term is. I'll put full funding in hand. And then about how long do you suggest the timetable is? If we said go and we need $1 million, how long does it take to get all that done?
I was given a timetable to.
For when we're gonna actually open the bids.
Construction contract. So what I did is I made the timetable map to that. So we would start it 1st of August and we sell the bonds October 23rd, the same day you award the contract for the construction.
October 23rd?
Sell the tax notes, and you have your money 30 days later. It's not set in stone, it's just based on when you get
Based
the
on when
money,
we do
sort
the
of
bid
work
opening.
backwards.
That was the time frame we got from our architect to when we can award the bid.
That's not set in stone, that's just based on the timetable you gave me.
Yes, sure.
And I prepared $3 and $5 million options, and that's what I was asked to prepare today, and that's what I did. So, and then I also have this one, we talked about before, just going back to the basics of instruments that are available and all that. And we can go back through those if we want to. It's really where you want to start.
While we're waiting on her, let's go through that. Let's go to tax notes. Help us move along here. Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg.
This is one we've gone through before, and so what we look at, when the county's looking, or anybody who's looking to borrow money, the statutes, a couple of introductory pages there, and then page 4 are the instruments that are commonly used. The first 3 are the most common: general obligation bonds, certificates of obligation, and tax notes. General obligation bonds require a vote. You can only call an election in May and November. And now I think we have limited, we can't call every May and November. I think you can only do it in odd numbered years. Those are these are all tax-backed debt. That's your main source of revenue, so that's what you're going to pledge to pay the debt payments. They're backed by the full faith and credit of the taxing entity of the government. I think they can go up to 40 years in maturity, but they require a vote. So you have to time it according to the election times. The next tax-backed debt is a certificate of obligation. Same full faith and credit of the taxing entity. It can also go up to 40 years statutorily. It does not require a vote, but it does require a notice in the paper of general circulation. And I think the legislature, there was a 30-day waiting period. I think they passed the law that said now it's 45-day waiting period. I'm not sure when that takes effect, but that was the most recent legislative session. I think that's the following year. I think they give us a year to get to that.
And you said it does not require a vote?
Does not require a vote. A certificate of obligation does not require a vote.
Okay.
It requires the court to take action and issue a notice of intent to issue certificates of obligation, and then put a notice in the paper for 2 consecutive weeks, and then wait 30 days before you can sell the COs. And that 30-day waiting period is going to change to 45 days sometime in the next year or two when that actually takes effect. And the third instrument is a tax note, more often called a tax anticipation note, and that only requires one court action to pass the sale of a tax note. You can do all kind of information and public hearings if you want, but it's not required by the statutes. I'm just telling you what's required by the statutes to borrow the money. The two stipulations on the tax note, it can only be 7 years of maturity, and the county auditor has to recommend the county issue a tax note. It's one of the stipulations of the statute.
What's that mean? I mean, why would you recommend a tax note?
Part of the statute just says if the county has an auditor, the county auditor has to recommend that they would issue a tax note.
Okay.
And again, that's a law, the bond lawyer can really tell you the more details behind it, but I'm summarizing the public finance handbook that
Sure.
was written.
Okay.
These other instruments that are down here, revenue bonds, I don't think a county has a dedicated revenue stream like a water sewer bond or revenue stream that they could dedicate. Contractual obligations and time warrants are more for equipment and aren't done nearly as often anymore. Time warrants, refunding bonds would be if you like a restructure, if you remortgage your house, or you do a refunding on your mortgage, you could do a refunding bond to lower your interest rates. And lease purchase obligations are also used at some point more for equipment, and they're funded by an M&O tax, or the others are funded by an INS tax, or dedicated interest and sinking fund tax. So over the years, as we've talked about these, it seemed that we sort of focused on a tax note, but kind of didn't want to do more than 7 years. And so the analysis that I prepared for going forward would be a tax note with a 7-year maturity.
And we can do less than 7 years, Ken.
You can do less than 7 years.
But if you say you're gonna do it in 7, and typically, say you did it in 5, is there a penalty, like an early payoff or something?
Normally, when you do a 20-year obligation, there's a required 10-year, they call it call feature. Since you're only borrowing 7, they might, you might say, I want it callable at any time. It means you can pay it off at any time. The lender might want 5 years. If you say, I want it callable at any time, or be able to pay at any time, you put that in the bidding instructions, and then they bid it accordingly. It might cost you fractions of the interest rate, because then they're They're subject, they have interest risk, they have
Sure,
risk.
sure.
If you say you're gonna make it non-callable the whole 7 years, you might get a little cheaper interest rate, because then they know they're gonna be guaranteed that payment.
Right.
So that's a negotiation tactic when you prepare your offering documents. That you're the boss, you tell them what you want and let them bid it accordingly.
Okay.
And that way, if you could pay it off at any time without a penalty.
I know, like buying a home, you sign it for the note, and if you try to do it early, then there's a penalty in some mortgages.
Right. Or if you make an extra principal payment, it comes off the back end.
Right,
It doesn't reduce your payment structure,
right.
but it would be
Pay off
paid
it
off
sooner.
early.
Okay. And the auditors find extra money all the time, so we could,
And then, so once you pick your instrument that you're statutorily authorized to use, we sort of focus on a tax note, then you need to determine your method of sale. If you're creditworthy, which we think you are, based on your financials, we could get you credit rated by one of the rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, or Fitch, and they establish a credit rating, and we can then take your offering documents and publicize them, or take it to the market, if you will. And our recommendation is to take this transaction to the market and let them bid this to get you the lowest interest rate. That's our job. And because of our broker-dealer status, we have the authority to do that. And so what is the market? The market is a combination of companies and software tools to allow us to take your financial information, put it into these offering documents that the market is used to looking at, and then advertise it. It's all done electronically. And so what I would propose is on that sale date, the day that you're going to award these construction contracts, we conduct the sale. I'll be in Mary's office and watch the bids come in electronically, and they rank them based on total interest costs. TIC is the industry standard. Lowest cost wins. You might get 5, 10, 12 bids. Lowest cost wins.
but your company, as part of your contract, would manage all of this.
We manage
for
all
us.
that for you. So that's what we recommend. Now, that's called a competitive market transaction. You can do a negotiated market transaction. So as a broker-dealer firm, I work only as a financial advisor. So I work with a fiduciary responsibility to you to get you the lowest borrowing cost. And I'm federally licensed to do that by the SEC. An underwriter, which some firms do both, I used to work for a firm that did both, they buy your bonds and they mark them up and resell them. That's their job. And they have to give you a letter stating, even though they're saying like a broker-dealer firm, if I'm operating as an underwriter, I have to tell you I'm an underwriter, and my interests are not the same as yours. And they're required to give you a letter stating that fact. So if you like these people, though, or you have relations with these underwriters, then you can select them to underwrite your bonds, and I can negotiate with them on that market, on that given day, to get you the best price based on all the market conditions that go into interest rates. If you select them. If you don't, then say bid on the market, hope you win. And that's what we would prefer to do, but it's your choice, it's not mine. My job is to present you with options, and you decide which way you want to go. And now we have empirical data that shows on any given day, a competitive bid situation, a market transaction is going to get you the lowest interest rate on any given day, lowest debt service cost. Until the market changes, that's what we're sticking to for now. And so that's what I would recommend. But it's your choice. The second level down below is we call it private or direct placement. That's, I have a lot of clients that aren't creditworthy and can't get a credit rating. So we work with about 100 banks, and those banks will also bid on your transaction. So we prepare a term sheet. It's not as detailed as an offering document. They don't require a credit rating. They do their own credit analysis, and then they will bid accordingly. And so you'd still have a competitive based transaction, but you would bid at the bank level rather than the underwriter level. Some of those underwriters are also banks, but these are smaller community banks and regional banks, and not necessarily national banks. And that's another option for you to choose. Because you're creditworthy, I would recommend the market transaction. That's going to require us to get a credit rating. Again, I step you through that whole process. And there's a fee for that. The fee estimate is then all the costs that we have. And that fee is the only thing that you're subject to pay if you don't borrow this money. Everything, all the other fees are contingent upon you closing on a financing transaction. But if they go through the process of giving you a credit rating, they do their work, and you decide not to borrow the money, you still pay that fee. It's
That makes
probably around
sense.
$15,000.
That makes sense.
So that's the only fee that you're subject to pay regardless of if you decide not to do the transaction, not to borrow money for some reason, or you get somebody wins the lottery, they donate $5 million to the county, and you don't have to borrow money.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah. So,
And
and
in
last time,
in the approval process, we don't have to we just have to give a general not to exceed number? Or can you sell bonds depending on what, I mean,
Well,
you have
you'll-
to give a number to go.
if we
through
get to the
paperwork.
timetable, I have, basically, we start next, what we do, and I just sort of work back. So, we would go to, based on what you told me so far, we would probably go to we would prepare the offering documents at 5 million. We get a credit rating based up to 5 million, saying we may borrow less. And then you have, and we advertise to the market the week before. So you'd have actually until October 15th, according to that
To
timetable.
advertise and say, well, instead of
say-
5, it's gonna be $1 million.
So we would set out the bidding instructions on October the 15th for 3.8 million, 3.75, whatever the number, you tell me, and then you have up to that time to bid,
Okay.
to decide how much you're gonna borrow. And then that week, you really need to borrow that amount, you can adjust it a little bit on bid day, but you should know by then, within
Yeah,
a week.
we'll know before that, for sure.
Yeah, that's the way I worked it out. And we can change all of that, we don't do any of that. We can do a private placement, not do a credit rating, you know.
Well, that wouldn't affect anything, interest rates, if we said 5, but we only borrowed $1 million, it would still be based on.
Unless you're over 10 million, the rates are gonna be the same. Anything under 10 million borrowing is gonna be the same interest rate. Based on your credit, based on the market, what's going on, based on Trump and Rocket Man tweeting at each other all night, all that stuff goes into the market. What the Fed does, all that goes into interest rates. And the rest of this presentation is just all the people, process, and paperwork involved with going through this, and that's
I don't
what I'm
think
gonna
we need to
manage
go
for
through
you
that.
going forward.
How much what's the going rate for a bond attorney?
Depends which one you pick.
Ballpark.
They also, based on how much you borrow, it's a percentage of how much you borrow normally. 20 to 70.
1,000?
Right. And I have estimates, and my cost, again, for bond, all that's in the cost estimates that I have included in there. Not knowing who you're gonna hire, but an estimate. You haven't seen the cost yet. So any questions on this? Okay? I can send all this electronically too, if y'all need it if you want.
Did you figure it? See your figure? Is there a possibility it goes over 50?
I've got one thing.
Oh, yeah.
I feel that you're comfortable with your seat.
You know I have one.
Yes.
I guess I'm back to now what?
So,
Excuse me, I can say most of the things that John pointed out were for Mary's benefit of what to be aware of as she would kind of be in the middle of all of this. He did ask that venue be in Grimes County. It's a pretty common request from him, but if there's anything that needs to be negotiated between him and their attorney, it doesn't look like any huge deal breakers of what he's pointed out.
On your compensation, Mr. Rosenberg, what are we, I mean, since it's broke down in so many percentages here, it said the minimum fee for any issuance of obligation shall be 20,000. So what is the max, perhaps, your fee would be?
The max based on how much you borrow.
It's based on, if we're talking about 5 million, I think that's what the number I hear you're talking about.
Right, so I did, based on the 3 and the 5, the 3 million based on that fee structure would be 37.5, and based on 5 million, it'd be 47.5.
Plus the bond attorney.
Plus the bond attorney, attorney general, rating fee.
So what is the, I mean, on your best guess, what is the fee gonna be, all inclusive with all of those contingencies in there?
I have some estimates for those and other numbers to give you. It's not really pertinent to my contract.
Okay? Then I guess we need to figure out what those are gonna be. Where would that money come from? Out of fund balance to pay those fees?
It would be, yes, it would be part of the contract.
Or it'd be part of what we borrow, or?
It could come
Potentially,
out of what we
even.
have in fund balance.
It's normally paid out of proceeds that you borrow to cover all the fees, the standard procedure. You don't have to, but that's standard procedure.
Well, that could be tacked on to the, yeah, borrow.
Because you're gonna pay it here, you know.
So we're going to have to involve all of the people that you have listed on here?
Pretty much. Additional issue, financial advisor, hopefully we need bond counsel, AG comptroller, they all, AG has to approve the transaction, you're borrowing a tax exempt basis. Therefore, the attorney general has to approve this, that you followed all the statutes. Comptroller has to certify it. The underwriters who would actually buy the bond, buy the notes, our purchaser. Credit rating agency, they're the ones I mentioned, Standard & Poor's, Moody's and Fitch. If you decide to go that route, a competitive market transaction, you'd have to hire one of those. The fees are included, we had estimated. Bond insurers probably would not be required. I'm thinking you're gonna be a AA credit. There's no reason to have the credit rating, I mean, the bond insurers now, their credit is AA. Used to be before the financial crisis, they were AAA. So everybody had bond insurance that gave you a better rate. But you're as good a credit as the bond insurers now, so it doesn't do you any good to have, it wouldn't be a bond insurer, more than likely. Paying agent registrar is a company that you will make payments to. Your semi-annual payments, they keep track of the actual investors that own your notes, and they'll send them the semi-annual interest payments. And there's those guys are involved. Escrow agent, probably not in this transaction. And you have an engineer and architect, so yeah, all those people will probably be included, other than the bond insurer and the escrow agent.
And all these folks that you've listed here require an additional fee.
Well, engineers and architect, that's a whole different deal. I'm just trying, there's all the people that are involved in borrowing money.
Yeah, we're already paying them, so.
Yeah.
Do you know where we are in terms of what we paid the architecture stuff for?
I don't remember what that last bill was. I mean, they're at least 85% on design. I don't remember what they had in there for construction management, but,
The last one, I think this week was what, like 20-something thousand?
I think so.
I mean, their whole contract was for 600,000.
600,000?
So Ben, is it required that we make our decision today, whether it's a general obligation, certificate of obligation, or tax note? No. We don't have to make that decision today. We don't have to know how much we're gonna borrow today.
So what's your,
I was gonna say, so the bottom line is you want us to say, we want you to take care of it for us, sign the contract and send you home.
I'll stay, I'll have to show you still.
Okay. Once we agree for the contract. Okay.
Ed, I'd just like to say, Ben's been coming for 6 years. He worked with Betty, he worked with Ben, and now he's working with you. And so, you know, he's been through 3 sets of commissioners' boards. He's been here when all 3 of our commissioners have died and stuff. So he's been coming to the county for a long time. and has been very gracious to come and give us our advice. And he hasn't gotten paid anything, not any travel expense or anything. And so I can appreciate where he's coming from on, you know, wanting to have something that if we ever borrow money, he's gonna get paid.
Understand. And I think the most pleasant thing I've heard today thus far is that we don't have to put him up against his competition. Because your comments of him working with us, and since I've been in office, he's answered all my phone calls, he's stopped by, he's schooled me, he's recognized that I'm a slow learner and hadn't made fun of me yet. But everything you said, I agree with and I appreciate. But this is a pretty nervous decision because it's part of a really big deal.
Yes, sir, but we can't move forward on the building.
Understood.
without it.
Understood. And I am committed to, I'm speaking for me, but I'm committed to moving forward and making something happen.
Well,
Take it away, Commissioner.
if we do enter into an agreement with you and we decide not to go forward with it, do we pay anything?
Well, if you get to that point where you've got a rating, credit rating, you'd have to pay a credit rating agency. All my fees are subject to you borrowing money. If you decide not to do anything, or you get windfall money, you don't need to borrow, you don't pay me anything.
And part of the problem that I see is there's been no actual vote on building the building. There's no vote recorded on whether or not to build a building. There's a vote recorded to contract to have design done. And I have some concerns that at this point, we don't have a complete design, even though we've gotten very, very close. Where does that put us in all of this? So, I mean, the court hasn't officially taken a vote on whether or not we're actually gonna build a building. I understand there's been some sentiment stated, but I've seen these processes go up to this point before and fall through the cracks, pretty close to this point.
Well, if that's the case, this contract won't pay anything if we decide not to build the building.
That's
Or
true.
find some other way, other than if we get to the point where it's, you know, like you said, the credit rating. We'd have to pay $15,000.
Mr. Rosenberg, in your scope of work, do you help us educate the public as to where we're trying to go so that they can understand what we're doing?
But I can prepare financial information for you if you want to put together, like in a bond election, they put together flyers.
Right, we've
And
talked about
And they have
that.
public hearings. That's required. It's not required for a tax note. Doesn't mean you can't do it, though.
Yeah.
That's up to you. And I could be at those meetings if you want me to.
Yeah, it may not be required, but I think we have an obligation to make sure that our public knows what we're doing and making sure that we fully understand what we're doing and can convey that to them. I know previously we did talk about certificates of obligation, which required notice. If we're going a totally different direction and we're obligating the citizens to a tax note, then I still think we have an obligation to educate our public as to what we're doing. This is their money. I mean, and if we had that kind of judge, I think that if we talked about making sure the public knew what we were doing. And so if he's willing to help us get there all the way, I think that's an important aspect of it, is to make sure that we're able to communicate what we're doing and to help us to communicate that to the public. We talked about educating the public, and like you said, the action that we've taken was to hire an architect So, wouldn't it be at some point we take an action that says that we're building a building?
I would think so.
That would be
Okay.
the award of contract, once we actually put it out for bid.
Mm-hmm.
But I
So
think,
we'd have to put it out for bid first, I believe, then we would have to actually award the contract.
And we're talking about doing all of this coming up to October, right?
Hoping to award the contract in the end of October.
So that means we've got some work to get done.
Yeah, we can get, like I said, still go and inform the people of what's going on.
Because although, the other things, before we talked about certificates of obligation, and it was based upon making sure that the public knew what we were doing. Although this does not, tax note don't require it, I still think it's important that the public realizes that we're moving forward. We're trying to build a building.
And that was discussed when we were trying to set our timetable on the construction contract award, giving us ample time as well to get out there and inform the public.
So, although if we hire Mr. Rosenberg, you said we're not obligated until the issuance of the tax notes.
Court action is only required for the tax notes. The only court action required by the statute is to award the sale of the tax notes. Doesn't mean you can't prepare flyers, put it in the newspaper, do public hearings, that's totally up to you, it's just not required by the law, the statute to borrow.
I was just seeing how willing you were to help us to get that message out
well,
there.
I think the message is 3 points. I mean, we need to advise the public, but I don't want us to make presentations to the public if we don't know what we're talking about. So I
Well,
think.
that's what I was saying.
Well, but I think there's 3 points. Why do we even need to do this? Second, what do we intend to do because of the why? And then third, how are we gonna get it done?
Right.
So why is because we're in a growth period, we're courtroom short, businesses, buildings are to the point of really not being repaired, so what are we going to do? We're going to build a new business law center that will have adequate courtroom space that is going to consolidate the business of the county to hopefully make the business more efficient, safer, secure for everybody involved. How are we going to do that? We plan on doing that with the building that has been designed, and we plan on paying for it with your dollars, taxpayers, on the basis of, the term is a tax note, or at least at this point, if that's the preferred way, sir.
A portion of it, because we
Yeah,
got fund balance
okay.
to pay for the majority.
Money that we have accumulated as we've worked towards how we're gonna get done, we've accumulated over $9 million, somewhere between 9 and 10 million. That's not enough to take care of the what, but through tax notes, we can borrow enough money to get the job done, and we plan on being in there in 2021 or no later than 2022.
2020, hopefully.
2021, yeah, 2020 and 2020, well, it rains here and I'm gonna say 21. 20 sounds great to me. But I think both of you commissioners, what you're saying, I think it's, there's no doubt we need to let the public know what's going on. It's just that from explaining to the taxpayers and making sense, or at least hopefully sounding like we make sense, why we're doing it, what we're gonna do, and how we're gonna get it done. If we sign the contract today, it doesn't obligate us to anything until we finally get some money. And there's a hush over the crowd.
Well, I had made a motion to.
You wanna restate
I'll
your motion?
it, to hire U.S. Capital Advisors to provide financial advisory services for Grimes County. Authorize the county judge as signatory pursuant to modifications or notes that were presented by John C., our county attorney.
Pursuant to modification of what?
Pursuant to the modification of
You
the
said-
contract based
Yeah,
on
you
the
said
notes.
notes.
Yeah,
so
based on the notes from
Okay.
our attorney Johnson.
To contract. By county.
Which is totally reasonable. There is a motion before the court. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Is there discussion?
Yes, I've got some discussion, or at least,
Okay.
I understand that this is just for financial advising, and that we're not under no obligation in the event that we choose not to build the building. We don't have any money. And from my position, would not want my vote to be interpreted as a vote that's cast in favor of building the building. I'm only voting to obtain financial advisement from U.S. Capital.
And that's all that the, and I appreciate you clarifying that, Commissioner, but that is all the agenda item says. Take action to hire a U.S. Capital Advisor to provide financial advisory services for Grimes County.
And this is just to set us up in the event that we actually want to go through with the building.
That's right.
Because if we put it off until we decide we want to go through the building, we have to wait another 90 days or more to actually get the loan to award the bid. And I don't know how long, once the bid is open, to when you can actually award the bid. So we might have to rebid it, potentially. So that's basically that.
Is there any further discussion? There's a motion before the court by Commissioner Mallett, seconded by County Judge Joe Fouth. All in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carries.
More data now?
Let's go.
Oh, that's what we needed, just more paperwork. Go ahead.
All right, so, based on this timetable that y'all gave me, assuming, again, this is not set in stone, to award the bids for the construction on October 23rd, Commissioners Court meeting, I have two options, $3 and $5 million options, and then a timetable to get us from there, from here to there, and also I have to do behind the scenes, totally, separate from what you guys are gonna be doing as far as designing the building, deciding on the building, publicizing. This is just to borrow the money in the back, on the back side, work that we have to do. So first is the numbers. This is, we've seen, I've sent this to you before, this is a tax rate analysis. We've seen these before over the years, and it's just based on the $3 and $5 million option for 7 years. That's one of these. So what we did is, the first page 2 at the bottom, I have these numbered so we can all be on the same page. 2 at the bottom is just your history of your tax rate here at the county, and then all the overlapping issuers, just to show, and this is also part of the data that the people who lend you money look at. They want to make sure the taxpayer here is not totally overburdened with taxes, and you've been keeping your tax rate right at 53 cents for the last many years. Then I ran the option, and the details are in the back on page 3, for $3 million for 7 years. Your payment's about $478,000, $477,000. And if you borrow $5 million, it's about $790,000 for 7 years. That's just the math. And what we did is we took the current market rate today of about 1.92% interest. If we did this sale today, now that's going to vary between now and October. The Fed's cutting the rate, maybe it'll go down, but 1.92 is pretty good. 7 years.
And there's more talk of them cutting it between now and the end of the year than raising it.
Right. So this is an estimate on that's based on 1.92% interest today for 7 years.
Is that indicated somewhere on this sheet? I don't see that.
Not on this page, but on the next couple pages. So that's just to show you on one page the two debt service options,
Okay.
3 and 5 million. And then on page 4, what we've done is this is the actual tax rate analysis. We took in your current taxable values. We just went up from the 2.59 to 2.844 in the left column there. 2,844,868. And I wanted to show you that increased 9%. So you guys have a track record of increasing values of about 7% every year for the last 20 years. And so what we've done is we take that analysis and we hold that value flat going forward. So to be conservative, even though your rates have gone up, if I put it at a 7% increase, your tax rate is going to go down every year. But so just to be conservative, let's just leave it at the current values, even though your history has gone up 7% for the last 20. There's that payment. So if you look on the prior page, that annual debt service payments of 406, 477. And that first payment is a little less because it's a partial year. We're closing mid-year. And that would be at a 98% tax collection percentages of approximately 1.7 cents on the tax rate. So a couple things, when you approve the sale of a tax note, or any tax-backed debt, you have to do it at a regularly scheduled meeting, because in essence, you're assessing a tax. Even though we're not gonna get it in this year's tax rate, because we're not gonna sell this until after you set your budget. So your first year payment in 1920, you're gonna have to come up with that from this 9 million or from wherever general fund operations. Unless we speed it up to sell your debt before you set your tax rate, before you approve your budget. We could do that. Therefore, you could assess an INS tax in September, but then you're deciding on how much you're going to borrow before you know exactly how much you need, and borrowing it maybe a little bit too early. But you could have it included in your tax rate for this coming year, but you'd have to sell the tax notes before, or when you set your budget, when you set your tax rate. That's not what I have here. I'm assuming we're just going to wait till October when we know what it's going to be and you'll borrow exactly what you want, but you're going to have to come with that first year payment next year will not be in your tax rate. So you're obligating the court next year for that first payment of $406,000. So I want to make sure you understand that. So, and then if you, on page 5 is if you borrow that $5 million, it'd be about 2.8 cents on the tax rate. And when you do this, you're going to set an interest and sinking fund tax, an INS tax, for your debt first. And it's not subject to rollback, at least not now. Legislature might change that next session, but not now. And so, and not that affects you much here, it does a lot, but the INS tax is not subject to rollback. Now, you can lower your M&O tax the same amount, so you will not affect your overall tax rate, but you're going to have a dedicated INS tax to pay this debt first. That's what you're telling the purchaser. You're going to pay the debt first over your other maintenance and operations. That's what INS is for. Now, on to page 6 is the detailed numbers of what we call this debt service scenarios. And if you look at this, the project fund in yellow is $3 million, and there's our cost estimate of everything included. In that $74,000 is our fee, bond counsel, attorney general, rating, QSIPs, advertising fees, miscellaneous, everything we could think of. And the underwriter discount is what the purchaser charged you to buy and sell your bonds. So that $103,000 is our estimate. Normally, we're fairly conservative. Normally, we'll get a little bit of that back. But that is what is normally paid out of the proceeds. Like you asked, like when you finance a house, you can pay the closing costs or you can finance them in your cost. The industry standard, and most everybody pays for the cost of issuance, is just part of the debt, and they finance that as part of the proceeds.
But like your house note, you've got to have enough, you've got to leave room in there to add that in, right?
We have it here. So if you look at this, and this is getting the detailed bond information, but on page 7 shows the bond pricing page. There's the principal payments are the amounts, the rate is a coupon rate, and the yield is the bond yield rate, and the difference is what the purchasers do to price these bonds for the market. And that difference is what you call premium, between par and premium. And so, if you look at the par amount, when we would sell this tax note, it would be 2.89 million. So it looks like you're only borrowing 2.89 million, but you also get those proceeds from the premium. So the premium, the total proceeds are the par plus the premium, which will cover your project funded $3 million plus the cost of issuance. But so when we prepare the offering documents, and when you do the final documents, it'll say you borrowed 2.89 million plus the premium. And that's as much of the bond pricing information that, again, and then they take those and they sell them in the open market and buy them and resell them, and it's, for you, my job is to get you the lowest borrowing cost. So when we bid these things, and it ranks all the, depending on what the costs are, they might have a low cost but a higher interest rate. They might have a lower interest rate or a higher cost. But it's all gonna rank them based on TIC. So if you look at page 8, there's a whole bunch of interest rates. Arbitrage yield, true interest cost, and interest cost, all-in cost. TIC is what the industry and standard is to rank and compare apples to apples on all the different purchasers that bid on your transaction. And so that's when they rank it, and I'll show this all, I'll be giving you all these computer-generated pages that show, here's all the people that bid, and here's all their bids, and it's ranked on TIC. Because all you want to really care about is page 9. What are my payments going to be? And the lowest borrowing cost, and how they price the bonds, and how the premium is priced, and what their cost structure is. I know you're very sensitive to cost, but in the end, we look at how much are you borrowing and what are your debt service costs over the life of the project. So in this case, 3.276 900, you're paying you're getting $3 million and you're paying $276,900 in interest. And so in essence, that TIC will calculate.
Did you say that number right?
$3,276,900.
Okay.
Did I say it wrong?
I thought you said 2.
276? So you're actually paying $276,900 in interest to borrow this money over the 7 years. And so that when we compare all those costs, we're gonna look at total debt service costs, and that's what the TIC does. And you'll see all different prices and premiums and all that, but in the end, comparing apples to apples, we're gonna get you the lowest borrowing cost, and that's what I think is important. And what they do in the secondary market to buy and sell these notes going forward is not really your concern, because you're going to be locked in at this rate and this debt service for the life of the debt. So,
Can I ask you a personal question?
sure.
Do you like your job?
Yes. I like it a lot more once you've hired me.
Holy
The
cow.
accounting mind.
Yeah. I have a accounting degree, so I mean, it's sort of.
This is fascinating stuff. I'm like, golly.
Just giddy, huh?
She just wants
Miss
to get
Mary
to
is.
Well, I can tell you, Jesse and I both like the payments of the 3 million better than we do the 5 million.
Right.
I think there's 100% agreement on that.
Yeah, I think, that's pretty.
All right,
close to
page
what
10,
I
I'm sorry.
believe, too.
And then page 10 shows your semi-annual interest, principal and interest payment. So I want to show here a couple things. One, every note, CO, bond transaction is paid semi-annually, 1 principal payment a year and 2 interest payments. And so, since this is a tax-backed debt, you want your principal payment due in the spring. Because each year you're going to assess your tax rate and set your budget come October. You have till March to collect that principal payment. So that first payment, October or September, you'd only have an interest payment due. So we set this up, and you can maybe move this till October, April if you want your principal payment due in April. That's also flexible on when you have your first payment. Normally you have a payment due within 6 months of when you borrow the money. And we've structured this so your principal payment will be due in the spring when you have time to collect it, and then your interest payment will be in the fall. And but that first payment of $406,250 will be in next year's budget. So, and you're not budgeting for that now because it's not gonna, we're not selling this till October.
No, but
So,
we're kind of budgeting for it.
we're kind of budgeting for it, but it's not a dedicated INS tax yet.
Right.
You'd have to do that prior to the budget being set or finalized. So, just to note, that's when, that amount will be coming out of next year's budget that's not in a dedicated INS tax yet. Unless we change the timetable to start earlier. And then on page 11 through 15, the payments, the schedules for the $5 million borrowing, as you can see, the costs change. We got a lot more percentages of how much you borrow. So the cost for the basic same went from 103 to 143. Because they're a percentage of how much you borrow. That's why when you're trying to get on me on all the cost structures, I don't know because they vary, and everyone varies. But we try to give you an estimate on what they would be for everything, but they change based on how much you borrow. Because they're percentages of the par amount. So any questions on the numbers? Okay.
And we're using round numbers, but we could go 3.7, we can go 4.6, we can go,
The normal increment in increments of $5,000, so it'd be 4,750,000, 455,000. So, based on working back from the October 23rd deadline, in an ideal world, you don't know exactly how much this is gonna cost until you get construction bids in, right? So according to your little rough timetable, it's early October. So sometime between
Well, I
October.
think we're actually getting bids in end of September, but whichever, but we're, you know, it's a price plus qualification, so we're given about a month to review that and actually award the bid. So we should know something pretty close within, you know, a little bit before that. most
Right,
likely.
I know this is just,
But yeah.
it's not set in stone.
Yeah.
Let's say, according to this timetable, if you get bid submission on 10/3, and you award on 10/23, that gives you 20 days to massage the bids and add this and delete this and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, was it 10/3 that we decided the bid? Okay, I was thought it was September 1st, okay.
I mean, the bids will go out next month
Mhm.
or in September.
Mhm.
Next month.
We're advertising for bid, and then we
Yeah.
get the bids, it's
And
October
then they'll
3rd,
go
so we
out,
decided on.
And then
Okay.
we have a pre-bid hearing in September, and then 2 or 3 weeks
Okay.
later have the bids coming in.
So based on that, and again, that's, you know, this is just, you gotta have a target.
Sure.
Um, Bids would be due on the 3rd, so, and then on the 15th is when we send out the notification to the market, so we would know exactly how much to bid at that time. Move back to the rating process, which we'd probably do early September, we would say, let's go out for 5, we're gonna tell the rating agencies we wanna borrow 5 million, and they would say up to 5 million, and then we may borrow less, and then between September, when you get your credit rating till October 15th, is when you could change that number. But it wouldn't be more than 5. So that's the question, if the bids come in October more, then what are you gonna do?
Then we definitely wouldn't build a building if it came in more than.
Right. So, and we set this timetable, it's not set in stone, these dates are suggested dates going back and forth. We start preparing the offering documents in August, we actually send those back and forth between legal and us and you 3 times. And so you can change that amount during those 3 times. But once we send out the bid to October 15th, where we say we notify the bond reporter, bond buyer, Bloomberg, all those market agencies, that's when you have to set the amount. That gives them the bidding instructions, and they have 1 week to put their bid together. So we have really till then. Now, if come September, the bids come in on 10/3, and you say they're all way out of whack, and we just push that. We don't advertise until you're ready to go. 'Cause they just need about a week.
Oh, okay.
So we would prepare the offering documents to the rating agency, say up to $5 million, we may do less. And we come on October 3rd, bids come in and they're $20 million, and we say, okay, stop. And we just stop. You'll need to pay the rating agency. And then you can get reimbursed for that fee from the proceeds. 'Cause you know, but other than that, you can stop and wait till you re-engineer and revalue and, you know, okay, now we need to borrow 5. And then we would do the offering, we redo the schedule accordingly. So then once the sale date, so what happens, that it has to be at a regular scheduled meeting, Can't be at the, and so you start your meeting at 9, bids are normally due at 10 in the morning. So you start your meeting, you do your normal business, I'll be in Mary's office, we'll calculate the bids and tabulate everything. If you get done, before I get done, evaluating all the bids, you just go into recess. And then you come back later, we evaluate we present the sale results, and then you award the bid at that time. And then you do the construction bids after that. So that would happen. Then from the 23rd until October till...
Let me put you on hold at October 23rd, okay?
Okay.
For those of y'all don't know. So Ben, you're more important than the state senator, put that in your notes, so. Oh, well.
Too much on one day.
Okay, October 23rd.
So at that regular meeting, if the bids are due at 10 a.m., we calculate all the bids, prepare all the bid summary, and then present it to you. If you're still meeting, then we just come in and present it to you. If you finish your meeting, and then we just go into recess, we come back, and you can award at that time. You do need to have you need to have a supermajority to be there on that day, so you need to have at least 3.
We'd have that or we wouldn't have the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a quorum.
We'll have a quorum or we won't have a meeting.
Okay. 3 commissioners. You
Not
have
a
to have
judge?
No, you have to have at least 3 commissioners at that meeting.
And the judge?
And but at least 3 commissioners.
Oh.
Again, bond lawyer will clarify that, I'm talking bond lawyer stuff, but it has to be a supermajority of the court to assess the tax.
So maybe
So
4?
it has to be 3 commissioners.
I think that's because you don't really vote.
Don't tell me I don't count.
Unless there's a tie. Right. Not, don't count, don't vote, unless there's a tie. So anyway.
That's according to bond law? I
Bond
mean,
law,
okay.
right. Then they take all the transcript, get the Attorney General approval, we prepare the closing documents, get everything filed, and then about 30 days later, it says delivered, you close on the tax notes, and you invest the money. So closing is just wire transfers on that day.
It's not gonna be cash on a pallet or anything like that.
Nothing else you have to do. Now, we'll call you to make sure you're still here and not in the Bahamas somewhere. And also in the bottom of there, I wanted to show you that bond counsel, you still have to pick the bond lawyer, paying agent, and the purchasers who would win the actual bid. So there's still some other people that haven't been defined yet. And I can help you with names of those people to, normally, bond lawyers you normally find on, again, there's a list of 5 or 10 you can contact. And purchasing agents, I can solicit those on your behalf to provide that service and provide Mary or you with those fees aren't a lot of those are, in the hundreds of dollars, but they provide that service. And so we can solicit those.
Is that-
Has to be selected.
Ms. Corey, is that something that would go through John C.'s office? Because anytime I've been told that the county hires an attorney, it must go through the county attorney's office.
Typically, yeah, yes, sir. Whenever the Commissioners Court hires any kind of outside counsel, it just takes his stamp of approval, yes.
So
Which I'm
that
sure
would,
you will.
you could help make recommendations, but at the end of the day, it still needs to go through the county attorney's office.
And they work for you, you hire, not, I don't want to hire them. I can just give you names of people we've worked with in the past.
Well, I don't even want names, but you can pass the names on to the county attorney.
Right.
Okay.
Any questions on the time? Again, that's not set in stone, it's just based on your timetable of potentially when you want to award the construction contracts, we work back from there. We can change this up, like I said, and if you want to add this to the tax rate for this year, you'd have to speed everything up and sell the tax notes before you set your tax rate.
There's not any real benefit in doing that for us, is there, Mary?
What?
There's not any real benefit of us speeding that up. I mean, if we can say we're taking up $406,000 and we're putting it into fund balance and we're pretending like that's our payment. And that's what I was saying about this additional money where we originally had around $530,000 saying, taking a portion of what that would be for our note and saying, okay, that's already obligated. We don't have $530,000. We now have $125,000. Okay.
Other my counties don't have the luxury that you have a money in the bank to cover that first year payment, and they have to include it. And so sometimes we have to do that. You don't have to do that, because you have a little money in the bank to make that first year's payment. Any questions?
Do you have any more paper to give me?
Nope, that's it.
Thank God.
Please, Bob.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, so just so you get your signed contract, Ben needs to, their attorney needs to work with John and
He's
get
at
the
a seminar
i's
this week,
dotted.
but I have your contact information. I'll let
Okay.
him know what action the court took today, and if there's anything that needs to be changed or requested, I'll have him contact you
Yeah.
next week.
And we called once before Courtney, she sits next to me in the office, so we can just call you or whenever next week and,
Yes, sir. He'll be out till Monday, but I'll put it at the top of his pile.
okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you very much. I mean, is there a motion to adjourn for you? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. We're back in recess of our workshop. We'll start up in about 6 minutes.